Get 5 coffins ready.
With the recent release of the enthralling Bake Kujira, it sparked a bit of a conversation. Is Kujira's design bad, or just boring? And for that matter, what constitutes a bad design in SMITE? Today we'll be taking a look at several gods who have been considered to be poorly designed at one point or another, and for a variety of reasons. These reasons may include poorly reworked abilities, a lack of fun interactions when playing as or against them, or a tendency to become a top 5 god with just a single item buff. So first, let's talk about my boy, Susano. At the competitive level, Susano has kind of been in and out of relevance since his release, being seen as a good pick but almost never a top 3 pick. In ranked, however, Susano is that guy. You see him absolutely non-stop, and why is that? 3 big factors. For one, damage, obviously. He does a boatload of damage and it is so easy to perform his combos once you understand how to use him, as in use his basic attack cancels. Secondly, he has a mahoosive teamfight ultimate, which again is just so easy to use. This makes him great at any stage of the game, similar to something like a Hunbat's ult, only at even longer range and with burst damage this time. It's something that, just like his main combos, is hard to mess up. I mean, what are you gonna do, miss it? What really elevates Susano though is his mind game. Pull 3. Now what are you supposed to do? Your initial idea would be to use a movement ability to get away from Susano, since he's just going to start comboing with his high damaging first ability. But you can't do that obviously, because since he has his 3 on you, he'll just teleport right to you after you use your movement ability. And now you're a squishy target with no movement ability and a melee range of an assassin. Chances are, it won't end well for you at most stages of the game. That's the main gameplay loop of Susano and what makes him difficult to deal with in casual game modes and in most ranked matches where communication is limited. He can very easily put you in a scenario where you have to try and fight him, and he has infinity billion tools to beat just about anybody at any stage of the game. This is because all 4 of his abilities close gaps on enemies in a direct fashion. His 1 and 3 are literal dashes of course, his 2 is a pull that puts you directly in melee range, and his ultimate can be performed at such long range it gives him ample time to walk back up into melee range. So even if his target is patient and uses their movement ability after his 3 expires, chances are, if he has his thinking cap on, he'll still have at least one way to catch back up to them. Unless Susano gets significantly behind, it can feel literally impossible to both fight him and get away from him. All that said though, his weaknesses are as clear as day. He has 2 dashes, but they both take time to come out. His first ability especially in that case, and his third ability can of course be body blocked, meaning that crowding a Susano is a surefire way to ensure he can't just easily scoot out of a bad situation. This is compounded by him having no built-in CC immunity. This means that any CC, from an Athena taunt to a simple slow, is bad news for Susano, and he struggles to get any dives and ganks done if he doesn't have some help from his teammates and or access to Blink and his Beads relic. Obviously again, there are ways around this. Magi's Blessing, as well as teaming Susano with cleanses like Geb's Shield and Aphrodite Ultimate. You can overcome some of these obstacles, but it's still a very blatant issue that Susano has. The problem here though is actually exploiting these weaknesses as a team, because that's what's required of you if you want to beat a fed Susano. Leave him alone for just a second and boom, your mage is gone and so is he. You really can't give him an inch when you're a tank going up against him. He requires you to pick wisely when choosing a tank to play against him, because while he struggles into most Guardians, some of them can do absolutely nothing to stop his onslaught. That goes for backliners too, because even though Susano has the whole mind game of holding onto your movement ability, when he has his 3 on you, gods with no movement abilities at all are taking all of Susano's damage and dying long before he actually expends all of his abilities. Susano is just plain excellent for dealing with disorganized teams and unsafe characters, but when some teamwork is applied he becomes much easier to deal with, so long as he doesn't get too far ahead. But teamwork is such a fleeting thing in a game like SMITE, so Susano preys on solo queuers, and if he gets against a duo queue, he's probably already queued up with an Aphrodite who's going to undo a lot of Susano's faults. So Susano has clear strengths but a clear way to stop him, but the way you stop him isn't really something that's available to everyone every game. But I don't think that necessarily makes him a bad design, just one that's very annoying to deal with. Next up comes a god with a very similar problem, just in a different way, Knox. To play Knox, you need access to only 2 ability buttons, your 1 and your 2. Observe closely. I'm going to put my 2 in our target, and then 1 them. Wow, riveting. They take a boatload of damage and can't move for 2 seconds, and they're guaranteed to get silenced since the 2 is so easy to hit, making the root afterwards harder to answer in the opponent's shoes before it actually lands. Okay, so that's 1 combo down. What's next? Nothing, like at all. This combo is the character. She has a very cool ultimate that nukes at very long range, reducing the damage your opponents deal as well, and a very interesting dash that, yes, most of the time is just a dash, but it does have like infinite interactions when used inside of a teammate. But despite the coolness of her dash and her ultimate, Knox really is just that single 2-1 combo and not much else. And let's be real, it ain't much fun to go against. It basically makes it feel like there's this magical barrier around Knox that you just cannot enter, otherwise 2-1 and you're done. Bare minimum, you have to use your Purification Beast to get out of it. This creates another issue too though, this time for the Knox. 2-1 is insane against enemy gods, sure, but that means she can't clear the wave and have a full combo she needs to be effective in a fight. So this means she's pretty awful in the mid lane, which brings her over to the support role instead. Okay, so a long-range tank with decent damage who silences and roots you for 2 seconds every 8 seconds. Oh, now that is just lovely. And of course, in game modes other than Conquest, that means that Knox has free reign to build whatever she wants, tank or full damage, or maybe even a bruiser build if those come back, since she's not duty bound to clear waves on her own in other game modes. So Knox is a lot like Susano, super fun to play as and great to have on your team, but doubles down on being exceptionally unfun to play against. And the way you beat her is simple, hope she misses her 2-1 combo or wastes it on somebody who doesn't matter, and then she folds like a lawn chair. That sounds really interactive. Naturally though, going to tank build means that all of that is much easier to play around as a Knox player, and even more annoying to play against. She missed her 2-1 combo, okay go 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 go! Oh, was that Prophetic Cloak and Lona's Mask are still insane together so we can't kill her before her 2-1 combo comes back up? Oh. Okay. And of course, if a tank Knox dashes into another tank on her team, it's just insult to injury. A tank you can't hit inside of a tank you can't kill. So to me, she carries forward the same issues as Susano, but her downsides of ways to counter her are even more boring and less engaging, even if it is easier to counter Knox versus Susano. But if you want to talk about things that are impossible to counter, you have to talk about another god of the night, Chernabog. Chernabog, like Knox before him, is considered to be poorly designed for the flaws in 2 of his 4 abilities. His dash allows him to dash into walls and become completely immune to everything. Ah, yes, very interactive gameplay right here. There is so much the enemy team could do about this, right here. Now this ability clearly has its faults though. I mean, he's got to be near a wall to dash into it, and of course dashing into a wall doesn't mean anything if you're crowded by the entire enemy team, a lot like Susano's mobility in that regard. Really where it becomes a problem though is when you factor in Chernabog's absolutely ridiculous ultimate. The ultimate starts off by Chernabog becoming untargetable and then slowing the entire enemy team and revealing them. Why? Revealing the entire enemy team is already an insane prospect, but slowing them is just plain mean. Then Chernabog can either cancel the ultimate to land in place, or can dash over to any of the revealed enemies with the ultimate. Then once he lands, he gets movement speed, damage mitigation, a Nissan Sentra, and a hat. Okay, I made those last 2 up, but seriously, what doesn't this ultimate do? If you haven't caught on already, this creates one of the lamest situations in all of SMITE in the late game. Chernabog split pushes the duo lane, which he can easily do thanks to his great clear and his 1v1 ability with the insane damage of his 1-2 combo. Then, his teammates pressure the Fire Giant, which is on the other side of the map. And if the enemy team tries to jump on his team, he ults, slowing them, revealing them all, and then basically makes them ask, do we risk a late game hunter with movement speed and damage mitigation dunking on us, or should we just back off? This works on so many levels too. Revealing the entire enemy team means that Chernabog, and his team for that matter, can see any enemies coming over to the dual lane to stop Chernabog, so they know exactly who's at the Fire Giant, where they are, and who's not there. It's a complete win button when it comes to the late game in Conquest, and of course the final layer comes when Chernabog's 3 is applied. You can do all of that, dash over to an enemy, and then 3 into a wall upon landing, giving your team ample time to come over and help you. Really, this only doesn't work unless you're way behind, and even then, this strategy is so consistently strong that many SPL matches this season have been called back from certain defeat from this comeback alone.
Let's fucking go, dude! Go! Nice! Holy fuck.
So what's the flaw here? Literally just lack of teamwork from Chernabog's team. No other ADC can do anything even close to this sort of impact in the late game. Damage-wise, sure. Some late game ADCs can keep up, but like, who else is revealing the entire enemy team, instantly dashing over to the other side of the map, and grants themselves damage mitigations and movement speed? Nobody. This ability is exceptionally bloated and unfun to play against, to the point that all high-risk can really do at this point is just tone back the stats to the point that the ultimate does nothing other than reveal enemies and let Chernabog dash to enemies. That's all really. Now that, to me, sounds like bad design. We'll circle back to Chernabog, but let's switch gears over to a god who's not so complicated but could still be considered a bad design. Nike. Ugh. Nothing this god does is fun or interesting. Her first ability, it's more damage and more range than any other warrior can hope to match, so she always pokes you out no matter what game mode or the matchup. It's hilarious how Nike can just press 1, then do nothing else and still win most trades in the solo lane. And even when you're in a situation where it gets easily trumped, like against say an Amaterasu who can easily stop the ability and get right into Nike's face all in one, Nike can use her, okay I'll just say it, god-awful second ability to cheese the opponent away. It slows Nike's movement speed and reduces her rotation speed, so it's not fun to use. And in melee matchups, it means you're not able to get in range to fight Nike since she just pushes you away. So even if you're able to get close to Nike and start trading, she can just push you away with this ability and just bounce you off it like a trampoline. It's a terrible feeling ability to use, and it's so annoying to play against. Now, if you actually let a Nike push you into her tower with this ability, that's on you. But regardless, a character who just presses one button and then you literally can't get into melee range with them with zero interactions to speak of is insanely frustrating. Just use the ranged CC to knock her out of it, I hear you say. Okay, but then what about her first ability? You can't cancel both abilities yourself in any solo lane matchup, at least not without expending your ultimate. So you're stuck either eating her first ability, which nobody can match in terms of wave clear by the way, or you're stuck being able not to fight her because she just very skillfully holds up her 2 in front of herself. You may just say, hey, why not play a mage solo instead? And to that I say, just can you not use words right now, please? Then we get to by far and away the most interactive ability in all of SMITE, Nike's ultimate. Nike slows all enemies around her and gains a massive shield. Wow, there is a lot you can do to play around this. Actually, that was one of those joke things I've been hearing so much about. Figured I'd try one out myself. There's really nothing to be done in either position of this ability. This ability is guaranteed to either 1. Slow an enemy so harshly that they have to use some sort of CC immunity to get out of the slow themselves, or B. Shield herself so much that she's able to live through almost anything, given that it's not too early in the match. And the clear response to both is obvious though. Wingblade to cleanse the slow, and Sunder to destroy the shield. Yeah, it's a little too easy. Both strengths of this ability are exceptionally easy to counter if you're a seasoned SMITE player, but if you're a newer or returning player, you're not going to know about those interactions and Nike's going to feel completely unbeatable. Nike is just ew. Way too easy, way too annoying to play against, and not very fun to play as either unless you're going into the jungle with full damage. Her laning phase has the annoyance factor of Susano and Knox without the more clear and present counters to those characters. There really is nothing you can do against Nike one-on-one during the laning phase if you're a melee character, other than just sit around and wait for it to be late game, where you just use Wingblade and Sunder to hard counter her ultimate. And of course by that point, her damage becomes a moot point as well. It's boring, it's lame, and I'm falling asleep just thinking about her. The same could be said about the man of the hour, Bake Kujira. He's a whale who humps the air, then humps it some more, and then slows you occasionally. Now funny enough, I actually enjoy playing Kujira myself, but it's undeniable that this god is not interesting to play as, or against, just like Nike. But the unfairness factor, at least in his current state, is even more of a problem. You cannot fight him. No matter who you are, you can't beat him. Even in the gameplay for my guide, where I only had one game of Kujira under my belt, I was already easily able to 1v1 a late game Mercury with sloppy, suboptimal plays. All the other gods thus far have had one big thing you could really key in and be like, that right there is what makes their design questionable. And Kujira is sort of the same way. In this case it would be his ultimate. Like Nike, Susano, and Chernabog, it's something that's so easy to land that it might as well be unmissable, and does something exceptionally annoying and hard to play against. In this case, it's time dilation, but unlike Oloro Ultimate where it's like, okay, let's just get the heck out of this area, Kujira, he can move. So that means it's extremely hard to get away from Kujira, and time dilation being what it is, means that there's absolutely no way you can kill him in any reasonable amount of time. Since the ultimate lasts for so long, that even if a carry uses their purification beads and begins trying to kill Kujira, Kujira's ultimate will simply outlast the purification beads and will still get the time dilation applied to them, making it nearly impossible to kill him. The main issue here is just the sheer size of the ultimate, and of course the fact that Kujira has a dash, meaning he can easily get back in range to begin applying the time dilation again. So even if you use a form of movement that takes you out of the time dilation field, such as a leap or a teleport, Kujira can easily get in range again to start reapplying it. And that's another thing, this form of CC is way too strong against dashes, because obviously, as you dash, you have the dilation on you, meaning your dash is slower and therefore you're stuck in the dash animation for longer, not doing anything. This has been absolutely awful to play against as gods like Mercury and Susano for me personally as a jungler. It's either you use your beads and any built-in CC immunity in your kit just to get away from this ability, and nope, nah. Chances are it's still too much and you'll get blown up either by Kujira himself or Kujira's team. And we talk about the perfect storm. Crit hunters and burst mages just have such an easy time playing off that time dilation. As for the rest of Kujira, it's just boring. He humps the air, slows you, has a very predictable dash that he basically can't miss. There's basically zero counterplay other than trying to use a disarm on your team to get him to stop basic attacking you, at least when it comes to his core kit. It's very boring, it's not fun at all to play against, and just like Chernabog Ultimate, there's not really a way to make his core kit good without being too good, at least in the early game. I mean, the guy just sits there basic attacking and slowing you. Not only is that exceptionally annoying, but it's hard to make that playstyle not be too strong in the laning phase, at least when it comes to the solo lane. And finally, in my opinion, the time dilation needs to be swapped with a different type of CC entirely. I mean, there's a reason Oleron's field takes a while to come out and, doesn't move. And Kujira, a god with a dash, is able to apply the same amount of time dilation and keep it applied to targets. It's not exactly fair. And if you want to call an ability that requires zero aim, that makes the entire enemy team use all their cleanses and hard CC just to get away from and not even stop the ability, and consider it a fair ability, okay, sure. But it's still way too big of a pain in the ass to deal with, to ever be considered fun. They could make sprint or wing blades stop the time dilations, movement speed penalty, or something along those lines, but that goes back to Oleron. That would make Oleron way worse than he is, while only slightly hurting Kujira. So that's 5 gods, one in each role. Which one actually has a bad design? Well, I think there are inherent flaws and general lack of agency when playing against a lot of the gods here. Knox 2, Susano 3, Nike 1 and 2, Chernabog Ultimate, and Kujira Ultimate really make you, on the receiving end of those abilities, feel like you can't really do anything. It's all in the hands of the players on the enemy team using those abilities. So that, I would say, is the number one thing that may constitute a design as bad in Smite, an ability that leaves the target, or targets in some cases, with little to no options, and more or less wait for the ability or combo in question to end with no real way to consistently play around it. But there are plenty of things like that. Nemesis, Nuwa, and Neith all have ultimates, for example, that literally can't be missed, and things like Tsukiyomi Ultimate and Amaterasu Ultimate may as well be unmissable too. So the difference here is how these abilities work with the rest of their kits. Sure, Nemesis has an unmissable slow, but it's not like she has hard CC to lock someone down and go to town on them afterwards. Tsukiyomi can dive bomb you for 1200 unmissable damage, but he has no other built-in CC immunity or movement abilities once he's in your face. And Nuwa sucks, and so on. The 5 gods I mentioned here, however, take little to no risk using these abilities, and they function almost too well when it comes to what the rest of their kits provide, Susano, Knox, and Kujira in particular. So that comes down to the final and biggest question: are these characters poorly designed? For Knox and Susano, I would say no. I think they're exceptionally annoying and downright unfair when they're too strong, but they are most certainly counterable with just a smidge of team play. As for Chernabog, well, yes, I think his ultimate is poorly designed. It does way too much. Too much to comprehend at a low level and far too powerful at a high level. The rest of them I would say is fine though. As for Kujira and Nike though, I do think they're actually pretty poorly designed. Not only are they more boring than actual whale watching, I mean seriously, you heard of YouTube? They're both just a bunch of impossible to miss circles that either provide too much range or too much CC and or damage to really be considered fair. Nike her damage and Kujira his CC. So there you have it, in my opinion anyways. 2 gods who have genuinely bad designs overall in Smite. Who do you guys think are genuinely poorly designed in Smite? And don't sing any of the reworked gods, I do have a video about them coming out later. That's all I have for now, thanks for watching.